Hey, welcome to Crossroads, folks. Donald Trump has been found guilty on 34 felonies. They actually did it. Now, right now, of course, we're waiting to see what happens. Trump is saying he's going to appeal this. There is a chance he could go to jail. And frankly, with the judge in this case, we've seen how he's done things already. There actually is a chance that this judge could send Trump to jail. That could be house arrest in Mar-a-Lago. That could be a couple years, maybe 3, 4 years even in New York. He could realistically serve a year at Rikers Island. They've allegedly cleared the way for that. So we'll see what happens. Now remember, this was 2 misdemeanor charges that were bookkeeping charges that were past the statute of limitations that they elevated to 34 felonies using the narrative that it was just mislabeled, basically. They then have taken that now, and of course the judge created a very long list of rules for the jury. It took him an hour or just go over the rules on how he was ordering the jury to make their decision. And of course they came up with a guilty verdict. So here we are right now. Now, I've seen different reactions from it. Trump supporters, some are enraged. I would say actually though it's more along the lines of, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. From what I've seen with a lot of the influencers on the Republican side, a lot of people seem to be just very disheartened with the state of justice in this country. Ironically, Trump had his best fundraising day ever, over $30 million, in fact. On the Democrat side, it's actually interestingly quiet. There was no statement from Joe Biden on Twitter, no statement from Obama. Nancy Pelosi just had a statement basically saying, respect the jury because this is how our system of law works. There's not people really jumping up and down and celebrating. It's very downtone. It's a very strange reaction from them, especially given the fact that Joe Biden was initially saying, at least his campaign was saying, that they were going to hold an event afterwards, that they would campaign on this. We haven't actually seen that. Now, right now, a sentencing hearing is set for July 11th. That's going to be just a couple days before the Republican National Committee nominates their main candidate, and it looks like the judge may have done this. We don't know if he did it intentionally, but the judge set the date for the sentencing just a couple days before the Republican Party is going to probably choose Trump as the, again, main candidate of their party. And also the campaign of Trump, they're focusing heavy on damage control, as you would expect. They're framing the case as being politically motivated. And Trump claims that he was prevented by the judge from presenting key evidence. Now, it's important to note also that the date, again, is set in a way that will very likely affect the presidential nomination. And remember as well that the American attention is going to be shifting starting next week because Hunter Biden is going to be standing trial as well. And so we're going to be watching a lot of chaos, frankly, folks. Now, Trump noted some of the issues that he saw with the case on Truth Social. Let me show you Trump's initial reactions to this. Trump said that, quote, "The jury instructions given by highly conflicted Judge Juan Merchan were unfair, misleading, inaccurate, and unconstitutional. They were also very confusing, just what the judge wanted, because there was no crime." Briefly on that, the judge actually made it so that they didn't have to agree on what the original crime was. Normally, of course, you need to, in a court of law, the burden of proof is on the people making the accusations under normal circumstances. If you're going to accuse somebody of a crime, you have to prove it. They didn't really do that. They did it on the surface level, right? On the, basically the bookkeeping charge and so on like that, right? That they just mislabeled the bookkeeping charge. But they didn't explain what the underlying crime was. And to get around that loophole, the judge made it so that they did not have to agree on that. That became no longer important. And so this whole idea of unanimous decision by a jury was overridden by the fact that the jury did not have to be unanimous. They just had to come up with, do you believe Trump is guilty of something, basically. You don't have to agree on what the intent was. You don't have to agree on what the precursor crime was. That whole intent that you would need to prove under most circumstances was altered because of the way the judge set up the rules. And of course, that's questionably legal, something Trump has been calling out. Because normally, of course, if you're going to bring a case, including in New York law, you need to have that. They didn't have that. Also, there's an issue of jurisdiction. The fact that this was, of course, a state court trying a federal crime, it might have been out of jurisdiction, and there's a lot of other issues too. So we'll see what happens as they try to appeal it. Trump continued on Truth Social. He said, "Not only did this highly conflicted, biased judge, Juan Merchan, prevent me from presenting the fact that I did not take a tax deduction on the legal expense, which was marked correctly as a legal expense, because remember, it was 2 misdemeanors past the statute of limitations that they elevated into 34 felonies. The misdemeanors were around allegedly labeling the Stormy Daniels quote-unquote hush money thing as a legal expense while they were claiming it was actually a campaign thing. Trump, of course, said he was not able to show the evidence that he did not treat it as a campaign thing, right? He didn't write it off as a deduction or anything like that like you would normally with the campaign finance. In other words, Trump saying that key information, key evidence was not allowed to be shown to the jury. And remember, when you're dealing with what could be exculpatory evidence, if the judge prevents exculpatory evidence from being shown, well, that's usually a big issue. Again, that'll be brought up very likely on appeal. Trump also noted the judge did not allow my lawyers to get tax records from the former attorney, whose name I am not allowed to mention due to the unconstitutional gag order imposed upon me. Election interference witch hunt. And again, you know, normally there's a discovery process with courts. Normally, all the evidence that could be exculpatory, that could show your innocence, is shown, and there's a process whereby you can request information, request documents, and so on, especially when you're being accused, to allow that process to happen. Trump claims that he was denied that process. Now, he continues, I'll show you one more thing. He says, "My civil rights have been totally violated with this highly political, unconstitutional, and election-interfering witch hunt. Our failing nation is being laughed at all over the world." Now, given this state, of course, Trump is saying he is going to appeal. I'll get into some of how that's probably going to look. That could be a long process. It could be a several-year process, even depending on how it goes. One of the issues that's being brought up is the fact that, well, look, this is New York State, and in New York City in particular, not even just New York State. So far, we've seen the court systems seem to have a real biased issue, just being honest. They have a very politically biased issue. The prosecutor brought the charges, of course, Alvin Bragg. He's been reducing felonies to misdemeanor. People pushing people onto the subway tracks, assaults, battery, even rape. Migrants, illegal immigrants beating up police officers, getting off the hook. Things like that would normally be treated as some of the most serious crimes in the country are being treated as if they're just low-level misdemeanors. And we're seeing what would normally be low-level misdemeanors, bookkeeping charges, being done the opposite, right? Being elevated to felonies. And so there's a question whether the justice system here is being politically motivated in these actions. Trump has repeatedly pointed out that Alvin Bragg is a Soros-backed DA. He's denied this. George Soros has denied this. But there is Soros money tied indirectly to Alvin Bragg. And so he does have some money through a bit of going around, let's put it that way, from Soros. Now, Trump also spoke with the media right after the verdict. Let me show you what Trump had to say in his initial statements right after the verdict. Watch.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win. Because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Now look, after the verdict was announced, the page where people can go and donate to the Trump campaign, well, it looked like it had crashed, actually was offline. This was the Trump donation site, and Team Trump, his team, they noted this. They said the American people see through crooked Joe Biden's rigged show trial. So many Americans were moved to donate to President Trump's campaign after, of course, the announcement that the WinRed pages went down. They said, we're working on getting the website back online as quickly as possible. Stay strong. Briefly on that as well, Trump's team said they had record donations immediately after the decision. They claimed it was the best fundraising day they'd ever had, over $30 million coming in. And that was despite the fact that, again, the donation page actually crashed, meaning even if you wanted to donate, you really couldn't for a good window because so many people were trying to donate all at the same time. Meaning, even though it was the best fundraising day the Trump campaign has ever had, about double their previous highest number, I want to say the last I checked was about $34 million in one day. That was even probably low because a lot of people who tried to donate could not donate because the website went down because so many people were trying. And so we'll see, maybe today the donations will continue. This has put just rocket fuel behind the Trump campaign. This is fueling the campaign, not stopping it. It's having the opposite effect so far. Now, it seems that currently the Trump campaign team does not believe the guilty verdict is going to make them lose votes either. In fact, if anything, it's galvanizing the Trump voter base. We'll be talking more about the impact of the verdict, though, after a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. Former President Donald Trump, again, was found guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the New York case against him. Again, this was the 2 bookkeeping misdemeanors that they elevated to 34 felonies. He's been found guilty of all of them. But it seems right now that, at least currently, the Trump campaign does not believe the guilty verdict is going to make them lose votes. And interestingly as well, the tone from the Biden side is very mute. They're not really dancing around or making noise or banging the drums about this. It feels like something happened. Frankly, there's an odd stillness in the air when it comes to the way this is being treated. Biden did not hold his big event that he was saying he was going to hold. Again, the main leaders of the Democrat Party, they're relatively quiet on this, other than a handful of them like Nancy Pelosi, basically saying that we have to respect, the jury's decision because the jury, trial by jury is one of the parts of the Constitution. It seems like, interestingly, they're more trying to cool down Republicans than they are trying to dance around and say, vote for me right now. It is a very odd calm. I don't think I expected them to act like this. You don't see celebrations on the streets, maybe a couple people here and there. You don't really see people banging their drums again. there's an odd silence around this. And on the other side of the political aisle, you have a lot of Trump supporters and Republicans saying that justice is going to go the other way. And they're talking about launching investigations. They're saying the door has been opened now to put other people on trial. If they can go after the former president, that's everyone, folks. That means every former president can now be put on trial. That means every single public official can be put on trial. They've opened that door, and that door is going to be very hard to close for this country. Now, on the note of this Trump campaign, Politico is saying that Donald Trump's pollsters have been tracking the impact of his indictments throughout his first trial, and they say moving forward to get ahead of events are arguing that regardless of the verdict in the New York hush money case, they can spin it in his favor. In other words, they don't think this is going to have a negative effect on the Trump campaign itself, which goes against initial polling saying that Biden is going to have the old Biden bump if they get a guilty verdict. That's off the table now. Trump's base is not turning on him. The moderates are actually turning towards Trump. In fact, a lot of never Trump Republicans, a lot of them have been stating their disgust with what took place yesterday, and the Democrats, again, are relatively quiet on it. Politico notes in the campaign's internal polling, 2/3 of respondents say politics played a role in his criminal indictments. 2/3 of people think this was politicized. 2/3 of Americans believe this was not justice, that this was a political attack by one party against the other. And notes that that is at odds with public polling, which has found that somewhere between a plurality and a majority of Americans believe the case has been handled fairly, at least previously, right? With a sharp partisan split. Some 60% of voters, they say, have said they think charges are very or somewhat serious. Even 6% of Trump voters say they would be less likely to back him if convicted. And again, that's Politico. But remember, that's Politico. And even among left-leaning news outlets, the views on this are pretty different. In fact, a recent poll by Drudge Report, which after Matt Drudge kind of left the thing, took kind of a hard left establishment shift. Even Drudge Report, they had a poll on this that could give a hint on how people really view the case. This is what Drudge Report showed, of all places. Drudge Report, again, they went from being pseudo-conservative to being fairly far left. They're very, again, pro-establishment these days. This is Drudge Report, folks. Now, by the way, if you go on the Drudge Report website now, on their main headline, they just wrote guilty 34 times, to give you an idea of where Drudge Report falls. On that poll, though, most people think that Trump is not guilty. And remember, the people reading Drudge Report are mostly not conservatives now. A good amount of people believe there was a mistrial. Only around 1/3 of people on the Drudge Report poll believe that Trump is actually guilty. Now, the Trump team also moved quickly in its response. His campaign published a video that claims the New York case is a sham trial. And they note the only verdict that matters is what happens on Election Day when Americans cast their votes. That's, by the way, one of the big narratives going around now. You know, hey, trial by jury, but the real trial is going to be November, when people cast their votes and decide who's really innocent and who's really guilty. Now, here's a bit of that as well. Let me show you.
This case is an abomination. You know, it's obviously political. 7 years to try to come up with this case. They're just wrong on the law.
The only crime that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for is the crime of running for president.
Political persecution at the highest level.
They've quite frankly given up on trying to beat him at the polls. Either going to steal it or stop it by law firm.
A Democrat prosecutor elected on a Get Trump platform.
What's going on here is a disgusting disgrace. It is war on Trump, it is war on the Republican Party, and it is a war on the Republic.
This case is the weakest case I've seen in 60 years of teaching, practicing, and writing about criminal law.
And I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
This judge, I mean, you don't need a prosecutor if you have a judge like this. This judge is not on the level.
It's a terrible case, but the judge has been pretty much a rubber stamp on everything that Bragg has wanted to do.
They're perverting the system of justice. You know, that's where the danger lies. The corruption and subversion of our institutions by the left.
Now, I want to take a minute and emphasize how deeply significant that video is and how deeply significant some of the responses among Republicans are being. Now remember, one of the big things you find with any political campaign is that the topics being debated are the center stage of what the country is discussing. Normally you have the establishment topics. Normally it's gun rights. Should people be allowed to own guns or not? Or how much should the government regulate firearms? It's abortion. And remember when the Supreme Court made it so that Roe v. Wade is overturned at the federal level and needs to be decided at the state level, a lot of people thought that that would actually harm Trump. Again, Roe v. Wade, right? Because abortion is a kind of divisive issue. People fall heavily on one side or the other with it. Normally, there are certain topics we debate as a country. And under normal circumstances, all the media just focuses on those topics. All the politicians just debate on those topics. And a lot of other things, like, for example, political corruption, special interest, all that stuff, that's all behind closed doors. They don't bring that out into the public. What is now taking place is that, Trump, he's been facing legal attacks. He has integrated those attacks into his campaign. He's using these attacks against him, saying this is an example of the corruption, of the problems our country is facing. This is why you need to elect me. I'm just emphasizing what he's been saying on his campaigns. And he's saying that if I'm not here, they're coming after you, essentially. He says, they're going after you, I'm just in the way. Now remember, for a long time, that message has been mostly just Trump, at least until recently. That message emphasizing that the criminal justice system in this country may be broken. That message suggesting that there is politicized justice, that there is rampant corruption within our political system, that maybe the only option is massive reform. That has been Trump's campaign narrative. And what's interesting now is that Trump's narrative is becoming the entire national discussion. We're not talking about abortion. We're not talking about gun rights. We're not talking about, whatever normal issue that they might have tried to drag out into the public to be the main talking points for the debates. All the normal political discussions are just totally overridden now. And what the country is focused on is a discussion on corruption, a discussion on politicized justice, a discussion on whether we're becoming a banana republic, whether we're like the Soviet Union, a discussion on whether these kinds of things should be allowed to happen in the country that used to be the model of democracy, of a constitutional republic, of rule of law, and a discussion on whether the America we knew is being brought to an end because of political and special interest. That is the discussion we're not having as a country. That's what the politicians are not talking about. That's what all the media pundits are talking about. That's what Trump is talking about. That's what his campaign is talking about. This is what the country is going to be debating on, and this is going to be the issue that's going to, again, as people go to the polls, the people are going to be casting their votes on now. The entire political debate in this country, the discussion on the soul of the United States, all of this now is focused on these core issues. Our entire debate has now shifted. We're not talking about normal politics anymore. This is going to be the main campaign issue going into November. And remember as well, because of the way it's been set up, Juan Berchan said it, so the sentencing is June 11th. We're not going to hear the end of that. Trump is going to be also facing other additional charges. And not only that, but Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, is on trial. Republicans in Congress just came out and they're noting all these different shell companies allegedly being used by the Biden family to bring in foreign money. All of this is going to be center stage for our national debate on what is now the main topic in America, which is political corruption and weaponization of justice, and whether in fact we're losing the very nature of what America is, the very nature, again, of a country based on rule of law that used to be the model for the world. Now on this as well, remember that Trump can't technically say whatever he wants. He has a gag order on him. Of course, he's been special counsel Jack Smith was denied a gag order in the Mar-a-Lago case. And I know the cases are getting convoluted because there's so many of them, but that's the case around the classified documents. That case is on hold indefinitely. But Trump is still, of course, he had the gag order in Manhattan, and as the judge considers his sentencing, Trump still has to watch what he says. But guess what? That does not apply to, of course, the Republican Party. That does not apply to his supporters. That does not apply to the media pundits. That does not apply to, again, Trump's political campaign. And so they're able to say whatever the heck they want. They don't have to abide by any kind of gag order. And they seem to be picking up the baton now that Trump can't carry because of the gag order, unless he wants to go to jail for that too. And they're carrying that. Again, this is now the political discussion we're having as a country. And look, given that the legal attacks on Trump have become a big part of his current campaign, it's natural that they would need to frame the legal cases for the campaign, right? The main narrative from the Trump team being that the charges are a type of legal warfare, weaponization of justice, to try to stop Donald Trump from ever becoming president again. And remember also, the timing of Trump's sentencing was set by the judge only 4 days before the Republican Party is set to nominate him as their candidate, suggesting, of course, that this was done in such a way to have the maximum effect of undermining his candidacy. I'll be talking about this more, though, and how there are reports that even Elon Musk is now working on an election integrity project. All of this, though, only on Epoch TV. So those of you watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, or Rumble, join us on Epoch TV for news reported with integrity. All you have to do is click the link below. You get access to my library of shows, but also our special features, documentaries, including my latest one on the border. It's called Weapons of Mass Migration. And I frankly show you the things that you're not being shown. I show you what's really directing the whole thing, what's really causing it, and the agreements that we've not been clearly told about that are operating the entire system. You can watch Weapons of Mass Migration only on Epoch TV. So be sure to click the link below in the description, get access to that, and also a whole lot more. Let me show you a trailer, and we'll continue this episode on Epoch TV.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
According to statistics, around 7.2 million illegal immigrants entered the United States under President Joe Biden alone. They have United Nations facilities here, and the people pushing this are leading people to their deaths.
To what extent is the United Nations facilitating the border crisis?
They're throwing rocks!
They're being overridden by international powers.
We are not authorized to talk.
It is a humanitarian business now.
And they said, oh yeah, these are the debit cards. We're giving these debit cards to the immigrants.
Why all the cloak and dagger? Why are we being so stealthy about this?
And some of these people have gone on record and publicly talked about this. People close to Barack Obama.
It puts 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters.
I've been researching, of course, what's happening, but I want to know why it's happening.
We'll see chaos on a global scale until America is extinguished and the power shifts completely to the east.